Hey there, folks. My name is Andrew Bloom. I'm owner of the bookkeeping firm Profit Logic, and I'm also a PhD student in business with a concentration in accounting. And here on this channel, I love teaching small business owners how to do bookkeeping, how to do your accounting, how to use software like QuickBooks and Wave to keep your accounts in order. So feel free to subscribe to this channel if you would love to get more tips and tricks on how to stay on top of your accounting for your business. And today we're going to go over how to create invoices in QuickBooks. This is really important to know how to do, especially if you want to use QuickBooks as the way you receive payments. If it's going to be your sole way of sending out invoices, let's say you're a freelancer or a small business that offers services where you're working with clients on an hourly basis and they pay later on for your service work, then you're going to want to know how to efficiently use the invoice feature in QuickBooks. And I'm going to show you exactly how to do this. And then once your invoices are sent out, you can get paid using QuickBooks payments features so that you can receive payments via credit card, check, or even PayPal or Stripe. And in that way, you can make yourself more accessible as a business. So to start, we're going to go over where you can access invoices in QuickBooks. So here we are at the dashboard, and I want you to first know that there's a invoice center, if you will, by going over to either sales, and if you don't see sales on pin, then go to my app and sales and get paid, and go on down to invoices. So we're going to click on that. And in this sample company, you can see this is the invoice center. On this dashboard, you're going to see a list of, and up here, you'll see a feature that shows how much of invoices are unpaid or overdue versus not due yet, as well as those that have been paid and whether they've been deposited or not. So from this particular dashboard, you can create an invoice and see all of your invoices in one place. Now, before we get started creating invoice, let's talk about how you could set up your invoices. So to change your invoices and the way they look on the customers or clients end, you're going to go up and select the gear icon and you're going to go to account and settings. And here you're going to go to the option for sales and some invoice settings you're going to want to edit are, first of all, whether or not you want to accept online payments. When you activate this, QuickBooks will give a feature on the invoice for the client to pay basically from that invoice through credit card, through PayPal, and then QuickBooks will receive the payment and then process it and then deposit it in your bank account. So I do recommend using this feature if you want to be using QuickBooks as the sole way you process invoices, as it streamlines everything, and then it also streamlines this information your company's books. So to set that up, you'll basically apply to accept online payments. You'll have to give your information about your business. I'm not going to set this up for this fictional business. But basically, you'll want to activate that if you want to process payments through QuickBooks. Here, you can also set up a standard message that will be sent to your clients on every invoice, and you can save that here. So once you're done there, you can save by clicking done. I'm just going to exit out. And another thing you're going to want to set up before sending an invoice is the actual invoice itself. Now, if this is a brand new account, when you click on invoices, you're not going to see this. Instead, you're going to see some guidance on how you could set up your invoices. But if that's not available, or if you want to change the way your invoices are set up, you're going to go to the gear icon again, and you're going to go to custom form styles. And you're going to go to new style and click invoice. And here are the settings you'll see for invoices. The first section is design. You can change how the invoice looks to your client, and you can use one of their templates. So, for instance, they have the ARI new template, ARI classic, modern, fresh, bold, and friendly. You could, I highly recommend adding a logo, and you can add that by clicking Add Logo. You can also change the color on the template, make it any color you like that I recommend complements your logo colors. You can also change the font, and here they have 4 different fonts. You got Arial, Courier, Helvetica, and Times New Roman. You can also change the font size to be 8, 10, or 12. You can also set the settings for how the page margins look when you print it out, and make some other adjustments with printing. So that's the design section. Under content, you can adjust based on these sections with their pencil icons here. So for the top section, you could decide what you want the business name to be. If it's different from the business name that's registered under QuickBooks, you could change a phone and email. You can add an address. You can add a website to your invoice. You could change the name of the form if you wanted to say something different from invoice. You could choose whether you want to use form numbers or not. And if you want what's displayed to your client to look different than what information is included in the invoice, let's say this is some internal information for your business to process, but maybe you want something different to show on the invoice, keep it cleaner, you can include or remove billing address, shipping, and due date. You can also add custom fields, which is a pretty cool feature. Uh, and I think this is only available to the Plus plan and higher. But when you add a custom field, basically you can include information on the invoice that might be beneficial to your unique business. So, for instance, you could say if you have a bunch of sales reps involved, you can include the sales rep, which can include a text and number, such as their name and maybe their rep number or their phone number. And this will be part of the transactions, and we want it on the invoice. And you can decide whether you want it on the form or not, or keep it internal. So we added the sales rep custom field, and now we're going to go back to the invoice we were working on. We'll edit. So that was the header. Now we're going to go over the item section. And here you can include an account summary. QuickBooks can pull information about the client on the invoice. So if there's already an open account, you can provide this information to the client, especially if it's an ongoing recurring invoice. This might be beneficial with a client that has an open account with your firm. You can change the name of the labels. You can decide whether you want to include the rate or quantity. Maybe you're just a service-based business and you want to keep this clean and simple and just have an amount. It's totally up to you. You can even include an SKU if that is a accounting system you use for your inventory. And there's even more features you can add to this invoice. You can even have a progress bar on the line items. So there's a lot of features you can play with here. And lastly, for the total, you can show whether there's a discount, but make sure you have your discount set up if that's something you offer, whether there's a deposit, and whether there was an estimate that was first sent to the client and you want that to show here as well on the finalized invoice. You can show that too. You can also display a message that you want to show to the customer, whether it's for this particular invoice or as a template. And you can change the size and placing of these messages as well. So lastly, the last tab here is emails. And since we're working in invoices, You can show whether you want in the email that sends the invoice to have the full details, summarized details, whether or not you want a PDF of the invoice attached to it. And you can put in what you want the subject line to look like. You could change how the greeting looks. And if they're stored in QuickBooks, you could decide whether you want their company name to show, a first and last name to show, their full name. You could change dear to to, or just have it blank. And then you can customize a message to your customer. And this is a good place to put any additional information you might need to send to the client about processing this invoice, or instructions on what the next steps might be once the invoice is received. You can also set up reminder emails. Again, I think this is just for plus plans and higher. And if you set up to send reminders on invoices consecutively after the invoice is sent and not paid, then you can set how each of those reminder emails will look. So that's invoice settings. And when you're done, you can click to preview what that PDF would look like. And if it looks good to you, you can click done. So now you have this custom form style for your invoice. Now let's go back to the invoice dashboard and create a new invoice. So we just went over the settings of the invoice. Now it's time, let's say you just got a new client, they're ready to work with you. Let's say you're consulting for an hour, they want to consult for an hour, and your fee is $300 for the hour. What you're going to do to create that invoice is you're going to either select create invoice from the invoice dashboard, or more quickly, you can go to create up here and click invoice. You can also bookmark this current page if you're going to be working with invoices frequently. You might want to have invoices be part of one of your bookmarks, so you can save that. Each of those links are going to pop up to this. So here's the individual invoice we're going to work on. Intuit Assist is going to try to recommend uh, certain images, files, text to use, especially as it gets to know how you apply invoices. It's going to make new suggestions. It's learning from what you're doing in QuickBooks. But let's say this is one of your first invoices. What you're going to need in the invoice: who needs to pay, what are they paying for, and how much is that service or item, as well as when is the invoice due. So again, some of the features that we talked about when setting up invoices, you can change here, such as adding a logo or editing the company. But let's say Aaron Bond is your client that wants to consult with you. QuickBooks does a good job of basically letting you edit and customize at any step of the process. So if the client information doesn't look right, you can edit the customer, you can edit shipping info. But the most important things to add and make sure that are accurate is you want to make sure the client email is accurate. Terms are a little different from a due date. If you have a policy in your company that you start charging a client more, or giving a discount to a client if they pay within before a certain amount of time, you can click how many days that policy goes into effect. You'll want to include the invoice date, the date it goes out, as well as the due date, letting the client know when the invoice is due. But when you set the terms, that will automatically apply that information. So if it's due 30 days from now, the date will automatically apply. And here you can see that from before we added a custom field sales rep, and the client's not going to see this, but you can keep this information internally if you have employees tracking specific sales or invoices. So that's who's paying the invoice and when is it due. Coming down here, now we're going to add the product or service. So for this example, we're going to do a consulting. Either you'll find the product already listed in your products list, or you can add a new product. In this case, we're adding the service consulting. You can include a description. Let's say we said we're going to consult for 1 hour at a rate of 300. Now, this information can readily be seen when you set up the quantity, rate, and amount, but I like to include it in the description. And it's just a courtesy reminder since sometimes certain transactions aren't clear when time has passed and you just forget what you paid for. So that's the description. We're including a quantity or a rate. We're going to do a rate of 300. I wish you could adjust these. Oh, wait, there we go. You can move over to the side so you can see what you're doing. And you could include tax or not. Since it's a service, it's not going to be taxed. And if we wanted to add additional items to this invoice, we would do so by filling in the next line or using the add product or service button. So now, coming to the bottom of the invoice, we've gone over who's paying, what they paid for, how much it is, and the total. Where if we want to basically make any adjustments to the template, since this is a unique consulting service, maybe want more information on uh, how to get paid. Uh, this is where you would also see some information and settings for payments. If you're using QuickBooks Payments, you could change the note to the customer. You can also create internal notes if you want your sales rep, whoever's sending the invoice, to include some information about the sale that's a part of your systems. You can do that. If you want to include a memo that will come up in in QuickBooks, then you can do that there. So that's the actual invoice. On the side here, you can basically adjust any other customizing factors. If you are sending out a product, you can have a ship to. You can remove things. For instance, we don't need quantity on here. We can clean this up a bit. If we just want to show the total, we could do that. And here again, you can add any other custom fields. And then under payment options, you'll see some settings for using either QuickBooks payments. You can include a payment for a deposit and set that up here. If you want to apply discounts, you can also apply that as well with an option applied before or after sales tax. You can include shipping fee. You can include late fees or set up the ability to pay in multiple currencies. And then down here, we see more of these design custom options that we saw when we were setting up the template. So again, as you can see, probably the most valuable aspect of QuickBooks is the customizability at any point of the transaction, whether you're customizing a template or you want this individual invoice to look unique. QuickBooks gives you so many options to make changes on the fly. So you can change the color and font there. When it comes to scheduling, this is again something you'll only find in the Plus package and higher. You can make this a recurring invoice, which is useful if you're setting up ongoing services or purchases. More importantly, recurring payments are useful. You'll have to have QuickBooks Payments set up to use this feature, but this streams this will streamline the payment process. Let's say your client agreed to 12 months of consulting once a month, then then you want to get paid as soon as possible, and it's easier for your client too, because then they don't have to go through the new invoice every month. This way you get paid automatically. So here are the options to set up recurring payments here and change those settings, as in you could decide when you want the recurring payments to go through, whether it's the first of the month or maybe there's a different frequency. You could change that here. And you can also decide when that's going to start. Maybe they're paying the invoice this month, but the recurring payments are going to be set up next month. And you can choose the frequency with how often it repeats. You also have the option to send reminders to let your customer know when they're going to have an upcoming payment. just in case they need to reach out and uh, change their payment method or even cancel if they don't have the funds. So those are the settings for this particular invoice. So basically, after the invoice is all set up and customized to what you need it to do, you can either save it and return to it later, or you hit review and send. Or if you don't even want to send this as an email, but instead share a link, maybe you're doing this through like WhatsApp or a text, then you can click share link and the invoice will save and give you a link. But for most folks, it's going to be through email, and you're going to click review and send. You'll see that the invoice got saved. And again, they're giving you an opportunity to make any changes you want to the template. And you'll even see a preview of the email. You'll also see a really cool AI feature. You can use their internal AI feature to make a unique message and clean it up. And once everything looks good, you hit send invoice. So now the invoice is created. It's set up uniquely for the client. And now you have an open invoice. And you can see that it's part of the not due yet, since we said it's due in 30 days. If 30 days passes and the client doesn't pay the invoice, then it's going to come up in unpaid and overdue. Now, there's a second step involved, which is having the invoice get paid and marking that as paid. And there's a couple of ways you could do this. If you're doing it through QuickBooks payments, it's going to be marked automatically once the payment comes through. And when the payment comes through to your banking, then in your bank feed, you're going to look for that transaction. So if we go to the transactions that come through the bank, if it comes up through the bank, QuickBooks will likely try to find it and match it based on the details of the invoice, the client, and the amount, and you'll get an option to match it there. However, if you're using QuickBooks in a more manual way, the other way to create a transaction to show that the payment was received, you can go to your Invoice Dashboard and come down to the individual invoice, and you can click Receive Payment. And here you're going to want to just record a payment if you already received that payment, or you can force a charge on the invoice. So let's say the client paid in cash when he saw us, and then we just hit record and close. So whether it was matched in the banking feed or we individually close that invoice, you'll now see that we have no more open invoices on the dashboard, and the individual invoice is now marked as deposited, and we'll want to include the appropriate date. So that's the second task of an open invoice, is to mark it as closed once you are paid. I'm going to show you one more thing to do with invoices that you should know about, especially if you're using them. If you're solely using QuickBooks as your way to process invoices, is that you're going to want to keep track of your invoices. And one way is to see the dashboard here. But if you have a lot of invoices coming through, maybe you have employees and what's getting paid and what's not getting paid, you're going to want to frequently review reports on your accounts receivable. Your accounts receivable are all your basically open amounts that are due to you from clients or customers. And to do that, you're going to go over to the reports section right here and click on reports. And you're going to want to be tracking accounts receivable aging summary. I recommend clicking it as one of your favorites. You're going to find it down here under who owes you. As you can see, there's other reports as well that you might want to look into if you're depending a lot on invoicing. At the very least, let's look at accounts receivable aging summary. So here you'll get to see a summary of all the clients that still have open invoices and how old those open invoices are. You can change the reporting period to be whether it's this week, this month, this quarter, this year. And you get to see all the open invoices. I recommend looking at this report at least once a month if you have a lot of invoice clients, or once a quarter if you're more of a freelancer and this is just a side hustle. But it's important to get paid and have make sure your invoices are up to date because that's going to keep cash flow in your business. And if you run out of cash, you're not going to be able to survive as a business, even if you supposedly look good on paper because now you're profitable, you have all these clients that owe money to you, but if you don't actually receive the money, then you're not going to be profitable as a business, and it's going to be a struggle to survive and reinvest in the business. So definitely look over accounts receivable aging summary report regularly. Okay, so that's it for invoices. If there's anything you want me to go in with more depth regarding invoices or any other feature in QuickBooks, please let me know in the comments below. And if you found this video and tutorial helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next tutorial.